This is WFM 97.2.
The Blue Mango.
The Forum with Ben Cooper.
Good morning and welcome to The Forum, our Monday morning discussion show here on WFM 97.2. First up, it's Gary J. He's a local filmmaker and photographer who earlier this year made himself homeless for a week in order to experience what being homeless is like for the benefit of a film he's made called Human Garbage for his YouTube channel Curiosity. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning.
And tell us a bit about you and your background. How did you get into making films?
I was originally a music producer. I used to own a record shop, and we also DJ'd and produced music for albums, along with people like Girls Aloud, even Sir Elton John, etc. And when I retired from that, I then got into filmmaking.
Right. And why did you do this project? Tell us about it first of all. You was going to go homeless for 7 days. The idea, wasn't it? How did the idea come about?
Basically, I'd got on the train and I'd got off at Piccadilly, and when you walk from Piccadilly straight down to Market Street in Manchester, all you see in doorways is homeless people. When you think about it, we're in the 21st century and we've still got homeless people, which is quite shocking, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, because I was already started making documentaries, I thought, well, it'd be a great documentary to do. And that's when I came up with the idea of becoming homeless for 7 days, because what you tend to find is when celebrities do it, they do it for a day or a night and then claim that they know everything about it. And it's not like that. So I said, right, well, I'll do it for a week just to see how bad it is. And to be honest, as you've seen on the video, it's quite shocking.
And you're quite right. I was absolutely shocked. First time I came into Manchester, and I've been to London and lots of other cities around the country, but it's when you come off the train, isn't it? You just see a homeless person, you give a quid, and you think, well, I'll give a quid to them, give a quid to... Well, I can't give any more money away, all these homeless people you're seeing. And are they all genuinely homeless?
I would say no. I would say that there's a quite high percentage that are sitting in doorways that are not really homeless. They're just there trying to make money. And obviously I can't say that 100%, but when you're sleeping in the doorways at night, what you tend to find is the number is dwindled down to a handful of people. So whether these people actually go into hostels, etc., I don't know. But the problem with Manchester is there isn't any hostels. They've all closed down now.
And that is a problem. And also there are lots of other problems facing rough sleepers, such as even things like street furniture. I was reading a report the other week that they design benches and things so that you can't easily sleep on them.
Yeah, basically the way the council are looking at things is they don't want Manchester to look attractive to the homeless people. Now, I don't think in any stretch of the imagination being homeless is attractive anywhere, regardless of where it is. You could be next to the seaside, it could be in the summer, it could be a lovely day, but if you're homeless, you're homeless. So I don't know where people get this, we don't want it to look attractive.
And I think if anyone watches your video, which is on YouTube, then they're definitely going to get a picture that it's not attractive to homelessness, because it's quite a rough... We're talking a bit about the problems you faced, but first of all, tell us why people, do you think, become homeless?
A majority of the people that I spoke to, it tend to be because of relationship breakdowns, where people have come home and maybe they've found out that their partner is having an affair, or there's been a bit of domestic violence within the household, and what you tend to find is people then just up and leave because of nowhere else to go, or they're thrown out the property. I was speaking to a lady who didn't want to be on camera, but she was saying that she was in a domestic relationship, she had nowhere else to go. She was from Leeds and she travelled to Manchester just to get away from him, because when she was on the streets in Leeds, he'd tend to find her, he'd beat her up, drag her back. so she ended up coming to Manchester to get away from him. There was another guy who his missus, he'd been married, they'd been on honeymoon, he'd gone to work, he came back and he found his wife in bed with the best man. He assaulted obviously the best man, got put in prison for 4 years, came out, now homeless, and because of that he's now on heroin and crack.
We'll talk a bit about drugs and things in a little while, but it's the fact that a lot of people don't realise how close they could be to becoming homeless as well, isn't it? It's just a breakdown like those examples that you've given, or the fact that you might lose a job. And of course, I was reading a report that last year there was a report that came out that 47% of income on people who rent goes on the rent that they pay. Now that's ludicrous. The cost of housing is just ludicrous, isn't it?
And it's absolutely ridiculous, especially for people that are trying to rent. I mean, you're talking sometimes about £400 just to rent a room rather than a flat, and how do people who are on minimum wage, where are they supposed to get this money from? And then obviously you've got the other side of where the government have decided to give people's benefits rather than giving it to the housing to pay the rent, they're giving it straight to the people. Well, obviously if these people have never had any money, all of a sudden they've got a load of money in their hand, they're going to go and spend it. And it's a really strange situation for people to be in. But saying that, there is help out there for them, because obviously people like Wythenshawe Community Housing Group, if you go and speak to them, they will help you. They're not just there to be your landlord, they'll give you as much help as you can, but you need to go in and speak to them.
And Saturn 5, you're listening to WFM 97.2, and in the studio with me today is filmmaker Gary J, who is talking about a project he's done. It's a film he's made called Human Garbage, where he went homeless for 7 days in Manchester to record and find out what it was actually like. And he came across a lot of problems that homeless people face. There's a big drug problem, isn't there, Gary?
Yeah, I mean, I think on any society, I mean, you obviously have drugs, but in the homeless society, what you tend to find is people take drugs to sort of like try and numb the pain almost, to try and forget.
Yeah. Do you think that drugs is a way that people become homeless, or is it a fact that they become homeless and then they take up drugs because of the boredom and the pain and the aggravation? It's a release.
The people I spoke to, a majority of them took drugs afterwards, because like I said, it was a way of numbing the pain, and a lot of the time it's because of the boredom and everything else. Now obviously there is the other side where people take drugs and then become homeless because they almost become antisocial and don't function the same as what a normal person would almost, which is, it's a shame really. It's the whole situation is so bad when it comes to drugs. When you've looked on the video, you would have seen that I spent a couple of nights with heroin and crack addicts, and they were lovely people, they really were, and they really looked after me. They knew what I was doing, they really looked after me. And when you see them on the street, if you were to see them, a lot of people would just pass them by, but when you actually speak to these people, they start to tell you why they got into it. I mean, Dave, who I spoke to, which obviously is not his real name, Dave, who I spoke to, he was 50 years old and he'd been on it for something like 30 years. And he said on the video, I wish I'd never seen drugs in my life. And he was so happy that I was filming to show people what it was actually like.
And there's also some vox pops on the video with people saying that people just walk past them or give them a look as if they're worse than anything. Did you have anything like that? I mean, I know when I go past something, I try not to get eye contact because I'm just too embarrassed about it all.
I don't think anybody should ever be embarrassed. I really don't. I think one of the hard things is when you're sitting there in the streets, it's horrible to be ignored. I mean, it's horrible to be ignored anyway off anybody, but when you're sat on the street and you're feeling really, really low and people are just totally ignoring you, it's obviously not a nice thing. Why ignore these people? Just even if you just stop to say hello, you don't have to give them anything if you haven't got anything, but just speaking to them sometimes, it just brightens up their day. It shows that they're still human beings at the end of the day.
And I think that the name of your video sort of sums it up, doesn't it? Human garbage. It does feel like they are just garbage on the streets, doesn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the reason I called it that, is because when I was speaking to the homeless leading up to it, doing the research, that was one of the quotes that somebody had said to me, where we actually feel like we're human garbage. We feel like we're just thrown to the side and nobody cares about us at all. You know, and regardless of what we do to try and better ourselves, there's always somebody knocking us down.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got that constantly, then that's the way you're going to feel, unfortunately.
And how did you deal with things like the cold and things like that?
Obviously, you've got to wrap up warm. I think it was 2 coats on, 2 jumpers. I had a pair of jeans on with a pair of tracksuit bottoms underneath, and obviously the woolly hat and everything. But the first night when I stayed there, all I had was a sleeping bag. And even then, I was cold. I could feel it, especially when it got to the early hours in the morning. And then after that, I was given a couple of blankets off people, and that helped. But obviously the insulation with the cardboard box that I had, which was I was lying on, that helped a lot as well. Because obviously lying on the floor, you know, you're just going to get the cold coming through you, and that's why you have so many cardboard boxes around.
And how about food and drink?
Food and drink wasn't that bad to get hold of, to be honest. Obviously when you first go there, you don't know the ins and outs, so there was points where I was absolutely starving. Manchester, the charities that are out there work really well, and there's people out there giving food and drinks to people, as you've seen in the video. You know, I must have been there about 5 minutes and some guys came up. The only thing is they came up and they were giving me all this food, and I'm thinking, I shouldn't really be taking this, which I'd already made up my mind anyway that I wasn't taking it. Anything that I did get, I was going to give back to the homeless rather than taking it away from somebody who really needed it. So yeah, there is food out there, but it's not always about the food. It's about the human contact, and obviously things like toiletries, somewhere to wash, where to go to the toilet, because obviously if it gets to 3-4 o'clock in the morning, where do you go to the toilet? You know, you've got to go somewhere. And there isn't anywhere. Now, I don't know whether councils could make somewhere up. I don't know. It's such a hard situation.
And you encountered some violence, didn't you? You got beaten up one night. Tell us what happened there.
I'd been staying with Dave and Sarah, who were the drug addicts that I had been staying with, and they were basically talking all night. Once they took the gear, they were talking and basically a load of rubbish. They even said that to me themselves. So I thought, right, well, I need to get some sleep. I was knackered from the previous night, and I said to them, I'm going to go and experience what it's like to sleep on my own. And they said to me, no, don't. You know, we suggest that you don't do that because it's really bad out there. So I said, well, I'm here to experience it. I need to go. So I've gone onto a side street and I've put my bed down and got my head down. It was nice and quiet. Just as I was drifting off, I could hear these voices. Now the thing is, when you sleep on the streets, you hear voices all night. You take no notice of it after a while, and then all of a sudden, the next thing I know, I was getting punched, kicked, and everything else. Now, it'd be almost funny if it wasn't so serious, because I was sort of like in a sleeping bag with my arms in the sleeping bag, and I'm there fighting to get out, and I couldn't get out, and it must have looked hilarious. But at the same time, you know, obviously they didn't know who I was. I could have been, because I had the cover over my head. I could have been an old man, I could have been a lady, I could have been a kid. You know, they didn't care who I was. All they thought was that it's a homeless person, we're going to have a laugh at you. And basically they ran off laughing once I'd got out, and as you've seen in the video, all my eye was bust open and everything. Now, if that's what I've gone through in a couple of days, imagine what it's like living there on the streets permanently. It's so bad, and you can understand why they stick in numbers like they do.
And you're quite a big guy, used to be a bouncer,
yeah.
But a lot of these people on the streets aren't like that at all, especially if they've been malnourished or...
Exactly,
they're not
some of them are just malnourished, obviously through either drugs, drink, or just basically not being able to look after themselves. You know, I was a doorman for over 20 years, you know, so I know what it's like to be hit, but at the same time, nobody likes to be hit, and especially when you're asleep. And there was no need for what had happened. And as far as I see it was just a pair of cowards, because like I said, it's once I started to get out, that's when they ran off. And I was hoping at one point, I mean, I did hear some noises and I thought they were coming back. And at that point I was awake and I was ready, but obviously it wasn't them, unfortunately.
And it's to see this on the video, how fearful you look, really fearful in some places, and you think, well, that's what it must be for people actually there all the time, especially if you're a woman, or you know, you don't feel that you can look after yourself, and it can happen. And what happened to you was unprovoked, wasn't it? You was asleep. You didn't even see who came along. Yeah,
I mean, I couldn't even tell you whether they were white, black, Chinese, or anything, you know, because like I said, because I was covered over, it happened that fast, even though time it seemed to go on forever.
And you aborted the project early, didn't you? Why did you abort early?
After 4 days, we were just getting on to the 5th day. I used to go onto a side street where I would do what you call links, where I would sit there with the camera and speak to the camera. Now, I've been doing this for the 4 days that I've been there, and for some reason, word had gone around that I was out there, and I'd gone onto a side street, and there were these 5 males that were all waiting for me, all hoodied up, and basically I was threatened. Now, I'm going to say that they were the city's drug dealers, because by some of the things they said, obviously they didn't say that we're drug dealers, but they thought I was a journalist and I was disrupting their business. That's how they put it. When I tried to explain what I was doing, basically I got a slap across the back of the head, and they was told that they didn't care what I was there for. I was disrupting their business, and if I slept there tonight, I wouldn't be waking up in the morning. Now, at that point, obviously, I've got a family. You know, I haven't got security like, I don't know, somebody like Ross Kemp or whoever. I haven't got security like that. And you've got to take all that, think, right, logically, is it really worth it? I had enough, as far as I was concerned, to make a programme. So that was when I decided to go back.
What did you learn from making this film, Gary?
I learned that the problem is so diverse, I don't know how we're going to see a way out of it. On the assumption that I'd document it all, people would see it, things would change. Unfortunately, once you start to delve into it, it's not as easy as that, and I really wish it was. And I sort of like walked away feeling that I'd almost failed on what I was there to do. So it's a hard slog for the people that live on the streets, but at the same time, as far as the council go, it can't be easy for them. It can't be easy for the police, it can't be easy for the charities, but somebody should be doing something somewhere, but what, I'm not sure.
No. And it's a very powerful film. It's about an hour and a half long, and when I saw it I thought, oh well, I'll watch a bit of it, because I have a short concentration span, and I don't watch films for that. I like short programs and things, but I was just absolutely gripped the whole way through. It was edge of seat sort of stuff. It has got some strong language in, I warn you, but it's properly, it's well. I see these films and they're just swearing all the time. This really needs it because it's so powerful. It's you really.
I tried not to put anything in that didn't need to be in. Obviously I was aware that they were swearing and bits of it, but at the end of the day, this is real life. You know,
it's a real life documentary, and I recommend anyone to see it. And there are a lot of issues in there, some of which we haven't managed to discuss today. For instance, about our asylum seekers, the problem, because a lot of asylum seekers, as we heard on this programme in previous weeks, do get help with housing that perhaps some people in this video don't get. And how can people see this video? What's it?
I have a website which is www.curiosityuk.net, or if you just go on to Facebook page, which is Curiosity UK, or follow me on Twitter, which is Twitter @GaryJUK, and obviously there's the YouTube page, which is Curiosity.
Okay, well, we're going to break for some information now about a show coming up on Thursday, an advert, and then we'll be back to hear about the Copperdale Trust.